And we have our special guest on today, Dr. Kennedy. But before we get into the show, I do want to let everybody know that the statements on this show and the topics that are discussed are not necessarily the beliefs of the radio station or the foundation. And so with that being said, we want to welcome everybody in the studio today and welcome all of our listeners out there. The topic of the show today is, where do we go from here? So again, we have our special guest in the studio, Dr. Kennedy, who is an organizational psychologist. It's definitely an honor and a privilege to have her in the studio with us today. We know that she's done a lot of work over the years here in Fresno, but right now she is residing out of Atlanta, Georgia, so she's here for a limited time only. So we definitely appreciate her for taking the time out to visit with us today. I remember years ago working with Dr. Kennedy, seeing her organize and teach and work with Reverend Harris here with the National Network in Action. I remember her as a women's studies professor at Fresno State, and also speaking into the community regarding very important health issues and regarding the AIDS epidemic and things like that. Somebody who we have definitely looked up to over the years. So welcome, Dr. Kennedy, and can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. It is my pleasure to be on the radio show this morning, and congratulations to the station. I'm excited to be here to have this conversation about where we go from here. I think that as an organizational psychologist, someone who studies organizational behavior, studies people within organization and their behavior, how an organization can create a person's behavior. These are conversations that is needed right here and now. And so I feel not only from my own training, my own professional training, not only in the work I've done as an independent consultant, not only in terms of just what theory says today, and even making up my own theory. I have the right to do that, because when we see what's going on today, somebody has to be able to do the analysis and figure out where we need to go. So I'm just so pleased to be amongst friends this morning and to share in the conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. Thank you. So where do we go from here? Today we'll be discussing more regarding police brutality issues here in Fresno as well as throughout the nation. So we'll be discussing the Dylan Moore killing by the police here in Fresno, as well as the jaywalking incident regarding the Hoover senior, which happened a few weeks ago, and we'll get into a little bit about the Colin Kaepernick issue as well. So, Reverend Harris, we want to go ahead and get a synopsis of view of the current events that have just recently taken place.
Thank you, Lady J. It's an honor to be back on the show again. I just wanted to make sure that we give Dr. Kennedy her well-deserved flowers as she sit here with us today. She has been a pioneer here in our community for quite some time as an educator, a liberator. She has this shirt that she wore, and I'll never forget it, when she was an advocate, still an advocate for the homeless community. And the shirt said, "Do for self or be a slave." And she wore it a couple of times, and I had the courage to ask her, what does that really mean? Do for self or be a slave. And I guess she kind of looked at me like I was stupid, like, what do you mean it means? It means what it says, do for yourself or be a slave. And so I took that I always have that statement when I think about that, I think about her, because she's always in the trenches, loving our people, loving our babies, loving our children, educating us. She keeps me on point a lot of times, because I get off track a whole lot. But she's just someone that we really admire. We miss her when she goes to Atlanta. I feel that when she's not here, that something is left. But at the same time, I know her spirit is here with us. She's really the only one that I know that was consistently dealing with the AIDS project here in Fresno. She put on conferences, she had workshops, she brought in speakers who had the AIDS and educating us in our community. The only woman that I know that took on the homeless situation here in Fresno, she did a water project where she had students from Fresno State, Pacific College, and the community giving out cold water to the homeless community. So she's a pioneer. She has a stake here and a legacy here in Fresno. And I just wanted to really acknowledge her work. She's not one that wants pats on the back and all that good stuff, but I just think it's important that we give credit where due. And I just want to give her credit and thank her family for loaning her to us. I know a lot of times they may be nervous sometimes, the type of work that I do, but she has a place at the table for liberating our people. Last week, ladies, we were on the streets. The Dillon Noble family did a silent protest at the convention center here in Fresno. I believe Chief Dyer was being recognized for his 15 years of service of being a chief of police here in Mississippi, Fresno. And Dr. Kennedy got there kind of late. I was there earlier, so we kind of missed each other. But I think it was kind of good that we missed each other, because I think if me and her both would have been there, we probably would have lit a match up and got everybody all fired up. And it might have not been a silent protest after that. It might have been one of those type of protests I do, right? And so it was kind of good that we missed each other. But I thought that it was very interesting to kind of give the framework of why the Noble family was there. There was a shooting that took place here of Dillon Noble, a 19-year-old Clovis High graduate who was gunned down here in the streets of Fresno. Not the first time this has happened, not the second or third. I mean, we were probably past 50, 60, 70, close to 100 times. This has happened in Fresno, where our police department just shoot on sight, not evaluating the situation, not looking at a situation how they're supposed to be trained to look at mental illness patients, someone is mental ill, but just roll up, pull your revolver, and just start firing point blank. Remind me of the cowboys and Indians. You just pull, and like Jesse James, just pull and shoot. And so that's the type of cowboy mentality we have here in the city. And so so this young man was, it went over the PA that someone was walking with a gun or something, and so the police department came in contact with this young man. They came in contact with him. So I want to make sure we keep the framework right here. They then turn around. He pulled over, I believe it was in a gas station, what have you. And then from that point, things kind of escalated to where the police officers felt that Brother Noble was a threat to them. There was no gun that was found. There was no weapon that was found. And so those who may not have seen the video, you can go to my Facebook, Floyd Harris Jr. It is the first posting on there. And you can kind of go through the links and see the actual video of what took place that day, because the police had body cameras on. And you can see for yourself, and I believe Dr. Kennedy will kind of go more into the dissecting of the step-by-step from her perspective as an organizational psychologist on what she perceived and see and where we are today. And so at this point, we're at the point where the Nobles feel that this was a wrongful shooting. They do have an attorney. He is dissecting the case right now. I would say in the media, letting the people see what actually took place. I will say that at the silent protest we had last week with supporting the Dillon family, I seen many of our religious ministers going inside of this facility, while I seen families on the opposite side of the street hurting and in pain. I would think, as being a minister, that one of the things that I'm taught is that we are supposed to have compassion for those who have lost loved ones or etc. And I didn't see the convoy of those religious leaders or folks who were leaders come over to the family and just give their condolences. I mean, they just walked right in like it was nothing, and they did not see the family. We did have one pastor who did come over and speak, but there were many pastors inside this gala of celebrating Mr. Dyer's 15th anniversary as the chief of police here in this Mississippi Fresno town. We then found out that there was this wall full of guns that were displayed inside this room, or lack of better words, the convention center, and they were raffling these guns off, these big long guns and short guns and shut-off guns, and so I'm trying to process right now.
Wait. So during the recognition for Jerry Dyer, they had a raffling of guns.
Yes, Lady J. They had a raffling. They had them pinned to the wall, or I don't know how they got them up on the wall, but you could see these big guns, long guns. Now I don't know if they were loaded or not. Probably was loaded because we were across the street. But I'm just saying that I'm saying. So how do you celebrate a 15-year of a police officer if you like him or not? Is not the point. Why is guns being raffled off at an event like this, right, with family members across the street who just lost their loved ones, right, from gun violence? So what message are we really sending here in the city right now? I believe there's an undercurrent that's going on that the people is really not seeing here in Fresno. Now, let's flip the script and say that, well, let's say that we had a black chief of police, and let's say that he was being recognized for 15 years of service, and let's say that you go in and you have all these guns up on the wall. What would one think? Oh, are you promoting violence? Are you promoting folks to buy guns and etc., which we have a right to bear arms? But it's just a fact. It just seems like there's a double standard here in America. There's a double standard here in Fresno when it comes to policing. And so I want to, before I go any further, to let Dr. Kennedy chime in on this right now from her perspective as an organizational psychologist, because like I said, I thank God that I left before she got there, because the silent protest probably would have turned into something else. But again, we have to be respectful to the parents and to the loved ones of who are the organizers. But it just bothered me when I seen all these people walk in there, and I'm talking about more black preachers than anything, that walked in there and did not come over and consult the family. Just, I'm praying for you, or you have my condolences. There was no compassion at all for this young man being gunned down, shot twice standing up, and then while he was on the ground, they put 2 more bullets in him while he was laying on the ground. That is a modern day lynching that has went on in Mississippi, Fresno. And as we as black people must understand, and Dr. Kennedy is going to get really into this when she comes on, we have to understand that if these white police officers, now we already know this has been happening to us for over 400 years in this country, and it's been happening to us the 46 years I've been living in this town here in Fresno. But we have to understand the danger that we are in. If they will take one of their own out, young man, if they would take one of their young men out like that, what does that say for us? We're sitting ducks. We're sitting ducks. Dr. Kennedy, can you chime in on your perspective on the event that we had with the Nolan family at the convention center?
Well, when I listened to you go through the analysis and describe what happened last week, I was having this internal conversation with myself. First of all, I said to myself, we definitely are at an intersection. In this time in which we live, this nation is in an intersection. Because if violence is the issue that we have in this country, how are you at a gala, embracing a chief who's worked 15 years, dedicated himself, his time, his skills, his energy to a city, 15 years. And in that gala are guns that are being raffled. Guns. Guns are a tool that's used, whether to defend yourself or whether to hurt someone. But guns are part of the violence conversation. We've seen the way the country has acted towards President Barack Obama with his stand on guns and other political parties, those who are pro-guns or anti-guns. So we know guns is a hot subject. So where was the lack of sensitivity, whether or not the family was around across the street? Just because we are now talking about violence, whether it's black on black crimes, whether it's Black Lives Matters, whether it is police shootings in escalating situations instead of de-escalating that, where is that? And if I am also hearing you correctly, Reverend Harris, that this gala, that it sounds to me, according to what I heard, way over 800 people that came. The convention center is a pretty large place. 15 years. In fact, I was asking some people, 15 years, is that all he's done in the city? And but as a chief, they said, and I'm used to going to events where people have been around for 25 years and 30 years, So 15 years is not a big deal. Look, it takes you 5 years in any, and I'm talking as a psychologist now, organizational psychologist, it takes you as a professional person a minimum of 5 years just to get into an organization and understand its culture, its behavior, its policies, its vision, its mission. And if you make it past the 5 years, you've got another 5 years just to make an indent into seeing what kind of changes can be made or what you can add to enhance the organization moving forward. So if he has 15 years into this, that the city decides we're going to spend all this money and give him a kind of a roast, as it were, okay. But who planned this to even say, let's have some guns? Having guns at an event where you are saying, I'm thankful to a person for what they've done, how insensitive, how inappropriate, it just seems somebody missed a link there. And then I'm hearing that you have the religious groups that were there, which he seems to do very well. They're very supportive of him. It's my understanding that he has a very strong faith background. So it would make sense that the faith community would want to support him. But how did they feel when they walked into that room? Here's a behavioral piece that's coming out now. How do you walk into a building? Across the street is a family that's doing a peaceful protest. They've got signs there that's evident that this is the family who has experienced the loss. And they see a multicultural group of people gathered silently across the street. Now you go into this event, which I'm hearing that the tickets were not cheap. So it was, it was designed for a certain socioeconomic group of people, neither here nor there. They went. And they walked into this building. And now they're going to honor their police chief for the work that he has done, in their opinion, the good work that he has done in the city. And in there, you are raffling off guns. And people are comfortable with that. Nobody is having an undercurrent murmuring about that. No one is saying, whoa, how insensitive. So that's an intersection for me. That right there. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the term intersection, could we come up with all these new terminologies? But listen, an intersection is exactly what it is. Nobody has the right of way except for the person who got there first. And in fact, the person who got there first has the right to say, you know what, you go ahead and go ahead of me. It is a four-way stop sign. And if you don't know and don't give respect to the person that's around you, and all of you decide to go in the intersection, that becomes a collision. People can lose their lives. This is where we are in the United States of America today. We are at an intersection on many levels, health issues that interferes with us as a group of people. When you look at housing, when you look at homelessness, when you look at health issues, we can go on and on and on the list. And families now who are experiencing police going in, and instead of de-escalating a threat, it seems to me that they're adding to the threat. So now you are raffling off guns, which we have issues already in the symbolism of guns that police are using. And so I'm just very concerned on that part. Now, I do social justice work, but I also do restorative justice work. And I'm thinking to myself, it is sad to note, Reverend Harris, that you said only one pastor went across the street or greeted or acknowledged. Now, when I got there, everybody was already in the building, but they did have a couple of police outside. Maybe it was to prevent the people from going in to the event, the protesters, and going in. But as cars were going by, they were honking their horns and acknowledging the family across the street in their protest. And you're telling me that you visually acknowledged people going into that building and did not even so much as wave to them, shake, salute them, do something, give them a high five, nod, whatever. And I'm sure that their names never came up in this event. That's the restorative justice piece. Where's the disconnection of the faith community going in? This man is a faith believing man. As a matter of fact, he identifies his religion as being a Christian. So even that is even more so, because I believe the tenets of Christianity is love. God himself says, look, let's just figure this one out. If you say you love me and you've never even seen me, then how can you say you don't even love your brother who you can see? Now that didn't come from Peter or John or Luke, and they're great writers in the Bible. That came from Jesus himself. He said, how can you say you love me when those who you see, you do not even show them love? You can't love a God that you've never seen if you can't first love your first fellow man. That's the number one commandment. And so you're telling me that this police chief, who his foundation is of the faith, Christian faith, who the city is come together, and there are ministers in there, and only one minister in this community goes across to greet. I am very, very shocked in that, and I hope that your seminary or that's in this community, Fresno Pacific, I'm an alumni of that, and any other seminary that's here, I hope that someone addresses that and says, first of all, there's a problem with this, because if we are supporting the work that you're doing in the police department, we have to really talk about restorative justice and how do you show love even to your enemies, quote unquote, even to those that you're not feeling comfortable with. So I'm sorry I had to get on that soapbox, because that bothers me, because I saw that visual, and I thought to myself, what kind of a testimony was that even to that family who's already hurting in that regard? So let's now go in and maybe dissect some of the situations here, this whole killing. And again, I'm going to put on my hats from